8-year-old Destiny had always been different from other kids her age. While her friends spent their afternoons glued to tablets or playing video games, she would sit at the kitchen table with a notebook, scribbling down what she called her big ideas. Most of them were pretty wild, like opening a pet hotel for hamsters or starting a delivery service using her bicycle. But her grandmother, who everyone called Nana Rose, never laughed at these dreams. Instead, she would listen carefully, nodding her head and asking questions that made Destiny think even bigger. Their small house sat on Maple Street, in a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone else's business. The paint was peeling a little and the front steps creaked when you walked on them, but it was home. Destiny had lived with Nana Rose since she was 3 after her parents died in a car accident. She barely remembered them, but Nana Rose made sure she knew they would be proud of the smart, determined little girl she was becoming. The neighborhood wasn't the fanciest place in town. Most of the houses were older, with small front yards and chain-link fences. But there was something special about Maple Street. Mrs. Chen next door always had fresh cookies cooling on her windowsill. Mr. Johnson across the street fixed bicycles for free in his garage every Saturday. And old Mr. Peterson at the corner house had a garden so beautiful that people would drive from other neighborhoods just to see his roses bloom in spring. Destiny loved walking around the neighborhood with Nana Rose in the evenings. They would wave to neighbors sitting on their front porches and stop to pet the friendly dogs that lived on their street. During these walks, Nana Rose would tell stories about when she was young, growing up in the same house where they lived now. She talked about how the neighborhood used to be even more alive, with kids playing in the streets until dark and families having barbecues together every weekend. But lately, those evening walks had become harder for Nana Rose. She moved more slowly than before, and sometimes she had to stop and catch her breath. Destiny noticed that her grandmother's medicine bottles on the kitchen counter seemed to multiply every month. The trips to the doctor became more frequent, and Destiny could see the worry lines around Nana Rose's eyes getting deeper, especially when she thought no one was looking. One evening in late May, Destiny overheard a phone conversation that changed everything. Nana Rose was talking to someone about medical bills, using words like payment plan and can't afford. Her voice sounded tired and scared in a way Destiny had never heard before. That night, lying in her small bedroom with its lavender walls and stuffed animals, Destiny made a decision. She was going to help somehow. The idea came to her during math class the next day. Mrs. Williams was teaching them about money and making change, and suddenly Destiny's hand shot up. "What if someone wanted to start their own business?" she asked. "How would they figure out if they're making money?" The teacher smiled and explained about profit and expenses, and by the end of the lesson, Destiny's mind was racing with possibilities. That afternoon, she burst through the front door with more energy than usual. "Nana Rose, I want to start a business," she announced, dropping her backpack on the living room floor. Her grandmother looked up from the medical bills spread across the coffee table and smiled, though Destiny could see she was trying to hide her worries. "What kind of business, baby girl?" Nana Rose asked, quickly gathering the papers into a neat pile. "A lemonade stand. But not just any lemonade stand. The best lemonade stand in the whole city." Destiny's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I remember you telling me about your mama's secret lemonade recipe, the one that made everyone in the neighborhood come to your back porch on hot summer days." Nana Rose's face lit up with a real smile for the first time in weeks. "You want to use great-grandmama's recipe? Child, I haven't made that lemonade in years. Are you sure you want to take on something that big?" "I'm sure, Nana Rose, I want to help with—" Destiny paused, trying to find the right words. "I want to help with things around here. I'm not too little to help our family." The next few days were filled with planning and preparation. Nana Rose taught Destiny the secret recipe, which involved not just lemons but a special blend of sugar, honey, and a tiny pinch of salt that made all the difference. They practiced making pitcher after pitcher until Destiny could prepare it perfectly on her own. Nana Rose also shared stories about her own mother, who had been known throughout their old neighborhood for her kindness and her incredible lemonade. Finding the right spot for the stand took some thinking. Their front yard was small, and the big oak tree blocked most of the view from the street. But the corner where their property met the sidewalk got plenty of foot traffic, especially in the afternoons when people walked home from work or the bus stop. With Nana Rose's help, Destiny gathered supplies. They found an old card table in the basement that wobbled just a little but would work fine. Destiny spent an entire Saturday afternoon making signs with bright-colored markers, writing Destiny's Sweet Lemonade in her best handwriting. She added little drawings of lemons and smiley faces around the edges, and even included the price. 50 cents a cup, made with love. The night before opening day, Destiny could barely sleep. She had counted her allowance money 3 times to make sure she had enough to buy supplies for the first batch. Nana Rose had given her a small metal cash box that used to belong to Destiny's mother when she was little. "For luck," Nana Rose had said, polishing it until it shined. On Monday morning, the first official day of summer vacation, Destiny woke up before her alarm. She made her first pitcher of lemonade while Nana Rose sat at the kitchen table, offering encouragement and reminding her not to forget the secret pinch of salt. The lemonade turned out perfectly, sweet but not too sweet, with just the right amount of tartness to make you want another sip right away. By 10 o'clock, Destiny had everything set up at the corner. The wobbly table was covered with a bright yellow tablecloth. The hand-painted signs were taped to the front, and a pitcher of fresh lemonade sat in a bucket of ice. She had even brought a small folding chair and a book to read during slow periods. Her first customer was Mrs. Chen from next door, who bought a cup and declared it absolutely delicious. Then came 2 kids from her school who were riding their bikes around the neighborhood. By lunchtime, Destiny had sold 7 cups and earned $3.50. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a start. As she sat there that first afternoon watching cars go by and waving to neighbors, Destiny felt something she had never experienced before. She was contributing to her family, using her own hands and ideas to make a difference. Every quarter that clinked into her cash box was a quarter that could help Nana Rose. And even though she was only 8 years old, she felt proud and grown up in a way that made her stand a little taller. Little did she know that in just a few days, her small lemonade stand would become the center of something much bigger than she could ever imagine. By Thursday afternoon, Destiny had fallen into a comfortable routine with her lemonade stand. She would wake up early, help Nana Rose with breakfast, then spend the morning preparing fresh lemonade and setting up her little corner business. The past few days had brought steady customers, mostly neighbors, kids from the nearby elementary school, and the occasional jogger who needed a cold drink. Destiny was beginning to feel confident about her little enterprise. She had earned almost $15 so far, which felt like a small fortune to her 8-year-old mind. She had even started a notebook where she wrote down how many cups she sold each day and which hours were busiest. Nana Rose called it her business journal and said she was impressed by how seriously Destiny took her work. The afternoon heat was particularly intense that Thursday. The sun blazed overhead without a single cloud to provide relief, and even sitting under the small umbrella Nana Rose had given her, Destiny could feel sweat trickling down her back. She had already gone through 2 pitchers of lemonade, which was more than any previous day. People seemed extra thirsty in weather like this. She was just finishing serving a cup to Mr. Peterson from down the street when she heard it, a low, distant rumbling that seemed to make the ground vibrate slightly under her feet. At first, she thought it might be a garbage truck or maybe construction equipment from somewhere in the neighborhood. But the sound kept getting louder and closer, and it had a different quality to it, more rhythmic and powerful. Mr. Peterson noticed it too. He paused with his lemonade halfway to his lips and looked around with a puzzled expression. "That's an interesting sound," he said, but his voice carried a note of concern. Other people on the street had stopped what they were doing and were looking around, trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. The rumbling grew stronger, and now Destiny could tell it was definitely coming from engines, multiple engines all running together. She had never heard anything quite like it before. It was deep and throaty, completely different from the normal car sounds she was used to hearing on Maple Street. Then she saw them. Around the corner came the first motorcycle, followed by another, then another, until there was a whole line of them moving slowly down her street. These weren't the small, quiet motorcycles she sometimes saw people riding to work. These were massive machines, gleaming chrome and black paint, with engines that roared even when they were moving slowly. Destiny's mouth fell open as she counted them. 12 motorcycles in total, each one bigger and more impressive than the last. The riders wore black leather jackets and helmets, and many of them had patches and designs on their clothing that she couldn't quite make out from where she sat. But she could tell these weren't ordinary people just passing through the neighborhood. Mr. Peterson quickly finished his lemonade, dropped his money on her table, and hurried back toward his house. "You take care now, Destiny," he called over his shoulder, but he didn't look back. Within moments, she noticed that the street, which had been fairly busy with people walking and kids playing, had become almost completely empty. Windows that had been open began closing. People who had been sitting on their front porches went inside. Even Mrs. Chen, who usually spent her afternoons watering her flowers, had disappeared from her front yard. The only sounds were the rumbling engines and Destiny's own heartbeat, which seemed to be getting faster and louder with each passing second. The motorcycles were moving slowly, almost like they were looking for something or someone. The lead rider, wearing a black helmet with silver designs, seemed to be scanning the houses and yards as they rolled down the street. Destiny found herself frozen in place, unsure whether she should pack up her stand and run inside or stay put and hope they would just drive past. But they didn't drive past. One by one, the motorcycles began pulling over to the curb near Destiny's corner. The engines didn't shut off immediately. They continued rumbling and purring like giant mechanical cats. The sound was so loud that Destiny could feel it in her chest, and she gripped the edge of her little table to keep her hands from shaking. The riders began removing their helmets, revealing faces that looked serious and weathered. Most of them were men, though she spotted at least 2 women in the group. They had tattoos on their arms and hands, and their leather jackets were covered with patches that said things she couldn't read from her distance. Some had long hair tied back, others had short haircuts or were completely bald. But what struck Destiny most was how they all seemed to be looking directly at her and her small lemonade stand. Through the window of her house, Destiny could see Nana Rose peeking through the curtains. Her grandmother's face showed the same worry that Destiny was feeling in her stomach. She wanted to run to Nana Rose to hide behind her grandmother's comforting presence, but her legs felt like they were made of concrete. The lead rider, a large man with graying hair and arms covered in tattoos, swung his leg over his motorcycle and stood up slowly. He was taller than Destiny had expected, and his leather jacket creaked as he moved. The patches on his jacket seemed to tell a story, though she couldn't understand what they meant. Some had skulls, others had wings, and there were words in fancy lettering that looked important but scary. As he began walking toward her stand, Destiny noticed that he walked with a slight limp, favoring his left leg. His boots were heavy and made solid sounds on the sidewalk with each step. Behind him, the other riders were also dismounting their motorcycles, but they seemed to be waiting to see what their leader would do. The neighborhood felt completely different now. What had been a normal, friendly street just minutes before now felt like something from a movie or a dream. The intense heat of the afternoon sun, combined with the rumbling engines and the imposing presence of these unexpected visitors, created an atmosphere that made Destiny feel very small and very young. She could smell motor oil and leather, mixed with the sweet scent of her lemonade. The contrast seemed strange and unsettling. Her hand-painted signs with their cheerful messages and smiley faces suddenly seemed childish and out of place next to these serious-looking adults with their powerful machines. The lead rider was getting closer now, close enough that Destiny could see his face clearly. He had kind eyes, she noticed with surprise, though his expression was serious. There were lines around those eyes that suggested he smiled often, even though he wasn't smiling now. His gray hair was neatly combed, and despite his intimidating appearance, there was something about him that didn't seem as scary as Destiny had first thought. But still, her heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She clutched her plastic pitcher with both hands, not sure whether she should offer these strangers lemonade or pack up her things and run. The moment felt enormous and important, like everything that happened next would change something fundamental about her summer, her business, and maybe even her life. The man stopped just a few feet from her table and looked down at her signs, then at the pitcher of lemonade, then directly at her, for a moment that seemed to last forever. Neither of them said anything. The other riders had formed a loose semicircle behind him, all watching the interaction with interest. Destiny realized she was holding her breath and forced herself to breathe normally. Whatever was about to happen, she decided she wouldn't run away. This was her business, her corner, Her chance to help Nana Rose, and maybe, just maybe, these intimidating strangers might turn out to be customers after all. The silence stretched between them like a held breath. Destiny could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears as the tall man with the graying hair studied her lemonade stand. His dark eyes moved from her colorful signs to the pitcher of lemonade, then to the small folding chair where her business notebook lay open, showing her careful daily tallies written in purple pen. Then completely unexpectedly, his serious expression melted into the warmest smile Destiny had ever seen. The transformation was so sudden and complete that she blinked twice, wondering if she had imagined it. The lines around his eyes crinkled in a way that made him look like someone's favorite grandfather, rather than the intimidating figure she had been so afraid of just moments before. "Well, hello there, young lady," he said, and his voice was nothing like what Destiny had expected. Instead of being gruff or harsh, it was gentle and kind, with a slight southern accent that reminded her of Nana Rose's voice. "That's quite a business operation you've got running here. What kind of lemonade are you serving today?" Destiny's grip on the plastic pitcher loosened slightly. She glanced toward her house and saw Nana Rose still watching from the window, though her grandmother's worried expression had softened just a bit. Taking a deep breath, Destiny found her voice. "It's my great-great-grandmother's secret recipe," she said, proud despite her nervousness. "It's got real lemons and honey and—" She paused, remembering that the secret ingredient was supposed to be secret, and some special things that make it taste different from regular lemonade. The man chuckled, a warm sound that seemed to ease some of the tension in the air. "A secret recipe, huh? Those are always the best kind. I'm Calvin, by the way, and I have to say it's been a mighty hot day for riding. I could definitely use something cold and refreshing." Behind Calvin, the other riders were also dismounting their motorcycles completely now. Destiny counted them again, 12 in total, and as they removed their helmets and gathered closer, she realized they weren't nearly as scary as she had first thought. There was a woman with short silver hair who was smiling at her, and a younger man with kind eyes who gave her a small wave. Even the ones who looked the most serious had expressions of curiosity, rather than anything threatening. "I'd like to try a cup of that famous lemonade," Calvin continued, reaching into his leather jacket pocket. "How much for a cup?" 50 cents, Destiny answered, her voice getting stronger as her confidence returned. She reached for one of her plastic cups and carefully poured lemonade from the pitcher, making sure not to spill any. The ice clinked pleasantly against the sides of the pitcher, and the sweet scent of lemons and honey drifted up into the hot afternoon air. As she handed Calvin the cup, he noticed her signs more carefully. One of them, written in blue marker with little flower drawings around the border, caught his attention. It read, "Helping my Nana Rose, every cup makes a difference." Calvin paused with the cup halfway to his lips. "Helping your Nana Rose?" he asked gently. "That's a pretty special reason to start a business. Would you mind telling me about that?" Destiny hesitated for a moment. Nana Rose had always taught her not to share family business with strangers. But there was something about Calvin's voice and the way he was looking at her, not talking down to her like some adults did, but speaking to her like her thoughts and words mattered. That made her feel safe. "Well," she began slowly, "Nana Rose is my grandmother and she takes care of me. But lately she's been having to go to the doctor a lot, and I heard her talking on the phone about medical bills and stuff. I thought maybe if I could earn some money with my lemonade stand, I could help pay for things." Calvin's expression grew even softer, and Destiny noticed that several of the other riders had moved closer to listen. The silver-haired woman was nodding approvingly, and the young man who had waved earlier had taken off his sunglasses, revealing eyes that looked suddenly sad. "How old are you, sweetheart?" asked the woman, stepping forward. She had removed her leather jacket and was wearing a simple black t-shirt underneath. Her voice was warm and motherly. "I'm 8, Destiny replied, standing up a little straighter. "But I'm very responsible. Nana Rose says I'm mature for my age." Calvin took a sip of the lemonade and his eyebrows rose in surprise. "Oh my," he said, taking another longer drink. "This is outstanding. This might be the best lemonade I've ever tasted in my life." He wasn't just being polite. Destiny could tell he genuinely meant it. "Thank you," she said, beaming with pride. "Great-great-grandmother's recipe really is special. Nana Rose says her mother was famous in their old neighborhood for making the best lemonade around." "I can see why," Calvin said, finishing the entire cup. You know, Destiny, that is your name, right? You remind me of someone very special. He paused for a moment and his expression became thoughtful and a little sad. I had a daughter once. Her name was Lily and she would be about your age now if... He stopped and cleared his throat. Well, she would have been proud to meet a young entrepreneur like you. The other writers had grown quiet, and Destiny sensed there was a story behind Calvin's words that was both important and painful. She didn't know what to say, but she felt honored that he had shared something personal with her. Lily had diabetes, Calvin continued, his voice gentle but carrying a weight of old grief. We spent a lot of years dealing with medical bills and doctor visits and all the things that come with that kind of illness. I know how hard it can be on a family, especially when you're trying to do everything you can to help someone you love. Destiny's eyes widened. Nana Rose has diabetes too. That's why she has to take so much medicine and see the doctor all the time. Calvin nodded knowingly. It's expensive, isn't it? All those medications and checkups and special foods. Even with insurance, it can be really tough to keep up with everything. Nana Rose thinks I don't know how worried she is, Destiny said quietly. But I can tell. Sometimes I hear her talking on the phone late at night when she thinks I'm asleep. She tries to hide the bills from me, but I see them on the kitchen table sometimes. The silver-haired woman stepped closer and knelt down so she was at Destiny's eye level. What's your grandmother's name, honey? Rose. Everyone calls her Nana Rose, but her real name is Rosemary Washington. That's a beautiful name, the woman said. I'm Betty, by the way, and I think what you're doing here is just about the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. 8 years old and you're out here working hard to help your family. That shows incredible love and maturity. Calvin finished his lemonade and set the empty cup on Destiny's table. You know what, Destiny? I think every one of us could use a cup of this amazing lemonade. It's been a long, hot ride, and we've still got a ways to go before we reach our destination. He turned to address the other riders. What do you say, everyone? Should we take a break and support this young lady's business? The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Absolutely, said a man with a full beard and a gentle smile. I've been thirsty for the last 50 miles. Count me in, added another rider, a woman with long black hair braided down her back. That lemonade smells incredible from here. As the group of bikers formed a line at her little table, Destiny felt a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Just minutes before, she had been terrified of these strangers. Now they were becoming her biggest customers of the day, and more than that, they were treating her with a respect and kindness that made her feel important and valued. But she had no idea that what was about to happen next would change not just her afternoon, but her entire summer, and possibly her whole life. As the bikers formed a friendly line at her stand, Destiny hurried to pour lemonade for each of them. Her small pitcher was emptying quickly, and she realized she would need to make more if she was going to serve everyone. The group was patient, chatting quietly among themselves while she worked, occasionally complimenting the delicious smell wafting from her stand. This is definitely the real deal, said Tommy, the bearded rider, after taking his first sip. You can taste the difference when something's made with love and care. My grandmother would have loved this recipe, added Betty, savoring her cup slowly. She always said the best lemonade had a story behind it. Destiny beamed with pride as she served cup after cup. She had never had so many customers at once, and the bikers were also complimentary and kind. They asked about her business, how long she'd been running the stand, and what her plans were for the future. She found herself relaxing completely, chatting with them like they were old friends rather than strangers who had intimidated her just an hour earlier. When she reached the last few riders in line, Destiny realized her pitcher was nearly empty. I'm sorry, she said to the remaining customers, but I think I need to make another batch. Would you mind waiting just a few minutes? Take your time, sweetheart, said Jake, a quiet man with thoughtful eyes. Good things are worth waiting for. As Destiny gathered her empty pitcher to head inside, Calvin called out to her. Hold on a second, Destiny. Before you go make more lemonade, I want to pay for my cup. Oh, that's right, Destiny said, realizing that in all the excitement she had forgotten to collect money from him. That'll be 50 cents, please. Calvin reached into his wallet, and Destiny expected him to pull out 2 quarters or maybe a dollar bill. Instead, he pulled out a crisp $100 bill and placed it on her table. Destiny stared at the money, confused. I'm sorry, but I don't think I have enough change for $100, she said. I only have a few dollars in my cash box. Calvin smiled that warm, grandfatherly smile again. Oh, sweetheart, you don't need to make change. That's all for you, but that's way too much for one cup of lemonade, Destiny stammered, her eyes wide with disbelief. No, Calvin said gently. It's exactly the right amount for what you're doing here. You're 8 years old, running your own business, working hard to help your grandmother, and making the best lemonade I've tasted in years. That's worth far more than 50 cents. Destiny looked at the $100 bill lying on her table and felt tears starting to form in her eyes. It was more money than she had ever seen at one time, certainly more than she had ever imagined earning from her lemonade stand. Are you sure? She whispered. I'm absolutely sure, Calvin replied. But I have a feeling I'm not the only one who thinks your lemonade is worth more than 50 cents. As if on cue, Betty stepped forward with her own wallet.
Calvin's right, she said, pulling out a $50 bill.
This lemonade brought back memories of my own grandmother, and that's priceless. She placed the money next to Calvin's on the table. Tommy was next, adding his own generous tip. For the best customer service I've received all year, he said with a grin, putting down $40. One by one, each member of the motorcycle group approached Destiny's table, not just to pay for their lemonade, but to leave tips that were far beyond anything she could have imagined. Some left $20, others $50, and a few matched Calvin's $100 contribution. They spoke about being impressed by her work ethic, touched by her desire to help her grandmother, and amazed by her poise and kindness. This reminds me why I love meeting young people, said Diana, a writer with artistic tattoos covering her arms. You give me hope for the future. She added $60 to the growing pile of money on Destiny's table. Jake, the quiet man who had been last in line, approached with tears in his own eyes. My little sister had diabetes, he said softly. I know what families go through. This is for her memory and for your grandmother's health. He placed $75 on the table. By the time everyone had paid, Destiny's small folding table was covered with more money than she had ever seen in her life. She tried to count it quickly but kept losing track because her hands were shaking with excitement and disbelief. The total was somewhere around $600, more than 12 times what she had earned in her entire first week of running the lemonade stand. I don't understand, Destiny said, looking around at the group of bikers who were all smiling at her with genuine warmth and affection. Why are you all being so nice to me? Calvin knelt down beside her table so he could look her directly in the eyes. Because sometimes when you meet someone special, you want to help them succeed. And you, young lady, are definitely someone special. Plus, added Betty with a laugh, that lemonade really is outstanding. We're not just being generous. We're investing in a quality product. The group chuckled at Betty's comment, but Destiny could see they all meant what they were saying. These weren't just polite strangers giving her charity. They genuinely respected what she was doing and wanted to support her efforts. What are you going to do with all this money? Asked Tommy. I'm going to give it to Nana Rose to help with her medical bills, Destiny said without hesitation. That's what I started this business for. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say, Calvin said, standing back up. But I want you to make sure you keep some for yourself too, okay? Maybe put a little aside for college, or for expanding your lemonade business. As the bikers began to prepare to leave, Calvin pulled out his phone. Destiny, would it be okay if I took a picture of you in your lemonade stand? And maybe we could get your permission to share your story with some of our friends. What do you mean? Destiny asked. Well, we're part of a motorcycle group that has members all over the state. We like to share stories about good things happening in the communities we visit. People love hearing about young entrepreneurs like you, especially when they're working hard to help their families. Destiny looked toward her house and saw Nana Rose watching from the window. Her grandmother had been observing the entire interaction, and now she was smiling and nodding encouragingly. I think that would be okay, Destiny said. But can you make sure to mention that I use my great-great-grandmother's secret recipe? That's an important part of the story. Absolutely, Calvin laughed. The secret recipe will definitely be part of the story. As the bikers posed with Destiny around her lemonade stand, taking pictures and making sure to capture her colorful signs in the photos, she felt like she was living in a dream. Just 2 hours ago, she had been a little girl with a small lemonade stand, hoping to earn a few dollars to help her grandmother. Now she was surrounded by new friends who had not only supported her business beyond her wildest imagination, but were planning to share her story with Others. Thank you, she said to the group as they prepared to mount their motorcycles again. Thank you so much for stopping and for being so kind. Thank you, Destiny, Calvin replied, putting his helmet back on. You made our day better just by being yourself. Keep working hard, keep helping your grandmother, and keep making that incredible lemonade. As the motorcycles roared to life again, Destiny waved goodbye to her new friends. But she had no idea that Calvin's social media post was about to make her small lemonade stand famous, far beyond anything she could imagine. As the sound of motorcycle engines faded into the distance, Destiny stood alone at her lemonade stand, staring at the pile of money on her table in complete amazement. She carefully gathered the bills, her hands still trembling slightly from excitement, and counted them one more time. $637. It was more money than she had ever imagined having, let alone earning from selling lemonade. Nana Rose appeared beside her so quickly that Destiny wondered if her grandmother had been watching from the front door instead of the window. Her eyes were wide with concern and curiosity as she looked at the money, then at Destiny, then back at the money again. Baby girl, what in the world just happened here? Nana Rose asked, settling into the spare chair that Destiny kept beside her stand. Destiny explained everything. How scared she had been when the motorcycles first arrived, how kind Calvin and his friends had turned out to be, and how they had paid far more than necessary for their lemonade, because they wanted to help with the medical bills. As she talked, she watched Nana Rose's expression change from worry to amazement to something that looked like she might cry. These strangers just gave you all this money, Nana Rose asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They said I reminded them of people they loved and they wanted to help us, Destiny explained. Calvin had a daughter who had diabetes too, and Jake's sister was sick, and they all understood about medical bills and families helping each other. Nana Rose shook her head slowly, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. Sometimes the Lord works in mysterious ways, she said softly. Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. That evening, as they sat at their small kitchen table counting and organizing the money, Destiny felt prouder than she ever had in her life. Not just because of the money, but because she had faced something scary and turned it into something wonderful. She had talked to adults as equals, shared her story with confidence, and made new friends who respected her for who she was. But the real surprises were just beginning. The next morning, Destiny woke up to the sound of cars driving slowly past their house. At first, she thought nothing of it. But when the sound continued for more than an hour, she became curious enough to look out her bedroom window. What she saw made her gasp and run to get Nana Rose immediately. There were cars lined up along Maple Street, and people were walking toward their corner carrying empty cups and bottles. A family with 3 children was setting up folding chairs on the sidewalk near her lemonade stand location, as if they were planning to wait for something. Nana Rose, come look, Destiny called excitedly. There are people outside. When they reached the front window together, they saw even more cars arriving. Parents with children, elderly couples, teenagers, and people of all ages were gathering near the corner where Destiny's lemonade stand usually sat. What do you think they want? Destiny asked, though deep down she was starting to suspect. Their question was answered when Mrs. Chen knocked on their front door, holding her phone in her hand with a huge smile on her face. Destiny, honey, you need to see this, she said as soon as Nana Rose opened the door. Mrs. Chen showed them her phone screen, which displayed a social media post with thousands of likes and comments. There was a picture of Destiny at her lemonade stand, surrounded by the motorcycle group, all of them smiling and raising their cups in a toast. The caption read, "Meet Destiny, age 8, running her own business to help pay for her grandmother's medical bills. Best lemonade we've ever tasted. Made from her great-great-grandmother's secret recipe, this young entrepreneur reminds us that kindness and hard work can come in small packages. If you're ever in the neighborhood, stop by and support this amazing kid. This has been shared over 3,000 times since last night," Mrs. Chen explained. People from all over the city are talking about your lemonade stand. And they weren't just talking about it. They were coming to experience it for themselves. Within an hour of setting up her stand that Friday morning, Destiny had a line of customers that stretched around the block. Families had driven from across town just to buy lemonade from the little girl they had read about online. "Is this really the famous lemonade stand?" asked one mother with 2 young children. "My kids have been begging to come here ever since I showed them the story." "We drove 45 minutes to get here," said an elderly man with a kind smile. "I wanted to meet the young lady who's working so hard to help her grandmother." The local news station arrived around lunchtime, wanting to interview Destiny about her business and the viral social media post. Standing in front of the cameras with her colorful signs behind her, Destiny felt nervous but excited as she explained her great-great-grandmother's recipe and her desire to help Nana Rose. "What do you want people to know about your lemonade stand?" the reporter asked. "I want them to know that even kids can help their families," Destiny said confidently, "and that sometimes when you work hard and treat people nicely, amazing things can happen that you never expected." By the end of that Friday, Destiny had sold over 200 cups of lemonade and earned more money than some adults make in a week. But more importantly, she had met dozens of people who shared their own stories about helping family members, starting their own businesses as children, or overcoming difficult times with the support of their communities. Calvin and his motorcycle group returned the following Thursday, just as they had promised. This time they brought friends from other motorcycle clubs, and they all ordered lemonade while sharing stories about their own families and the power of community support. "You've started something special here, Destiny," Calvin told her as he paid for his second cup of lemonade. "You've reminded people that helping each other is what makes communities strong." The success of the lemonade stand continued throughout the summer. Local businesses began asking Destiny to cater their events. The city council invited her to speak at a meeting about young entrepreneurs. And most importantly, Nana Rose's medical bills were completely paid off, with enough money left over to start a college fund for Destiny. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in the neighborhood itself. Inspired by Destiny's example, other kids started their own small businesses. Mrs. Chen began hosting weekly community dinners in her backyard. Mr. Peterson organized a neighborhood garden where everyone could contribute and share the harvest. The entire community had become closer and more supportive, all because of one little girl's determination to help her grandmother. As summer drew to a close, Destiny reflected on everything that had happened since that first intimidating encounter with the motorcycle group. She had learned that courage wasn't about not being scared. It was about doing the right thing even when you were frightened. She had discovered that people often have bigger hearts than their appearances might suggest. And most importantly, she had proven to herself that age didn't matter when you had determination, love, and a willingness to work hard. On the last day of summer vacation, as Destiny was packing up her lemonade stand for the final time before school started, Calvin arrived on his motorcycle one more time. This time he brought a special gift, a small plaque that read "Destiny's Sweet Lemonade, where great things begin with great dreams. For your new stand next summer," he said with a wink. "Because something tells me this is just the beginning of your business career." Destiny hugged her friend goodbye and looked around at the neighborhood that had become so much more supportive and connected over the past few months. She knew Calvin was right. This was just the